Let's start now.
Yes. Live? Yes. Dear professional colleagues, students, all esteemed guests across the world connected through live webcasts. I, CS Ranjit Pandey, immediate past President of Institute of Company Secretaries of India and Vice President Corporate Secretary International Association CSIA. On behalf of ICSI and CSIA, welcome you all to this webinar on very apt theme, Impact of COVID-19 on Global Economy, Role of Professional and Way Forward. Good afternoon and namaste from India to all of you. Friends, the outcome of the pandemic, COVID-19, all over the world has disturbed social and economic structure of the entire world. Topmost economies like US, India, China, UK, Germany, France, Italy, Japan, and everyone are severely impacted. Stock markets around the world has been pounded and oil prices has fallen off a cliff. Expert has also warned about the worsening condition of the global economy and financial structure. According to IMF too,
Recording has started.
The world economy in 2020 will suffer its worst year since Great Depression of 1930. It could shrink up to 3%. Friends, millions of people are out of the work. Supply chain has faced the major disruption as factory around the world has closed and people are working from home. Nobody is going to the offices. So it is impacting the whole economy. Friends, how bad it will be? How soon will we recover? And how we as a professional can help the economy to recover at a better pace. It is under the greatest adversary that there exists the greatest potential for doing good. We all are aware and we humans have proved this time and again. Winston Churchill once said, "The pessimists see difficulty in every opportunity, but the opportunists see the opportunity in every difficulty." With this thought, and to answer all this and more, we have joined in today in the special international webinar by the professional around the world. We have with us CS Ashish Garg, President of Institute of Company Secretaries of India, joining us from India.
Namaskar.
Welcome, Mr. Ashish. Ms. Karen Southgate, President, Corporate Secretary, International Association for the year 2020. She was President of Chartered Secretary, South Africa. Vast experience in finance, accounting, and taxation and economics. Welcome you, Karen, to this broadcast. CS Lakshmikant Garg, Managing Director, Deloitte, Touch and LLP, joining us from New York, USA. He is qualified CPA, fellow member of Institute of Company Secretaries of India, fellow member of ICAI. He holds market specialization in US GAAP, IFRS accounting, internal control, and so on and so forth. He's also played a very pivotal role in establishing ICSI Overseas Center, and he heads this today. Tim C, Director General, the Chartered Governance Institute, join us from Melbourne, Australia. He is academician par excellence and management consultant. Welcome, Tim C, to this broadcast.
Thank you, Ranjit. Nice to be here.
Mr. SaadManiar, Senior Partner, Cromac Limited from Dubai and Chairman of ACCA Member Advisory Committee in the UAE, has played a very pivotal role in establishing the ICSI Overseas Center in MENA region. So welcome you, Saad, to this broadcast and welcome to the webinar. Welcome you all to this international webinar to discuss impact of COVID-19 on global economy, role of the professional and way forward. Friends, you are all aware that this COVID-19 has locked down the entire world and everybody is facing the heat. I will going to the panelist and I will go with the theme first of all, that what is the impact on the global economy. So my first question to all the panelists, in fact I will go one by one. COVID-19 is a global pandemic, we are all aware, and for the first time we have facing the lockdown in most of the countries together, which have impacted the trade, industry and economy as a whole. What are the initial views of the panelists on the impact of the lockdown on an economy and also on the professional? This is my first question, and how the professionals like us are responding in the current economic scenario, and what would be the way forward. Briefly, I will first move to Mr. Ashish Garg, President ICSI. Your initial view, Ashish.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening across the globe who are watching us live. Friends, for your information, I would like to just tell you more than 50,000 members across the world is watching this webinar. And I welcome all my friends and colleagues from across the world, Melbourne, South Africa, Dubai and New York. And my immediate past president and vice president of CSIA from Delhi. Friends, this lockdown is a difficult situation for all of us. The COVID and lockdown has nearly affected all the economies across the world. Economies reliant on tourism, travel, hospitality, hotel industries, entertainment, for their growth are experiencing tough time, which is almost 10% of GDP in India. The crisis carries substantial uncertainty about its impact on people's life and livelihood, and especially the public health system. It has hit unorganized and MSME sectors very badly. World economy is set to lose as the stream of travel curbs and closure of manufacturing and other activities have led to a significant drop in economic activity. Slowdown in consumption, curbs on travel and other restrictions set to pull down growth have an impact on the economy. Besides the direct impact on demand and supply of goods and services, businesses are also facing reduced cash flow due to slowing economic activity, which in turn is having an impact on all payments, including for those of employees, interest, loan payments, and including taxes. We are also aware that corporate and industry is running with less than half of the capacity, and some places it has completely shut down. The industries such as hospitality, tour and travel is completely shut down, which has impacted on the economy across the globe. However, as far as India is concerned, I am very optimistic that it will bounce back with greater pace. Welfare packages has been announced by the Indian government. Friends, as far as professional is concerned, I have a firm belief that until and unless economy will grow, it's always difficult for the professionals to grow. So we as a company secretaries have to play a major role and provide all the support to the government and to the corporates in their all endeavors. With this initial remark, I congratulate you all of again for joining us and welcome you once again. Thank you, Ranjit ji.
Now I'll move to Karen. Welcome Karen again, and request you to kindly give your initial view on the overall economic scenario today, and also on the way forward for particularly for the professionals.
Thank you, Ranjit.
Karen.
Thank you to everybody, and as Ashish had mentioned, welcome, good morning, good afternoon, good evening around the globe. I think Ashish has covered quite a lot of the sectors already that have been involved around the globe, so I'm not going to repeat all of those, but I think it's important for us to understand that this is not a scenario that has happened in many instances around the world before, where we may have had an earthquake or a tsunami that has affected only one or two countries. I think this is the first time, possibly since a world war or a very other large event that not many of us can remember in our lifetimes, that the global economies as a whole have been affected, and affected in very similar ways. I think if you look at the lockdown, most countries would agree that, government's first concerns were their people's livelihood in terms of their actual lives. And they were forced in most instances to go into some form of a lockdown. I think what we now need to try and understand as a globe and as each individual country is how much further we take the lockdown. How much more can each of our people in countries, especially emerging markets, how much longer can they live without any form of income? How much longer can small business actually continue to support their employees and their families with less revenue or no revenue whatsoever? And how much longer can our large institutions like banks and others that are assisting, how much longer can they afford to assist? So I think from a country perspective, it's very specific. Although we all started in the same place in lockdown, I think it's now for each of us to understand how we make our way out of that lockdown. I think from a professional perspective, every single professional in every industry around the globe has now had to find new ways to do things. So we may have had a job that we've been doing routinely, but this pandemic has forced us to find innovative ways to do things differently. Having said that, I also think it's probably been the most stressful time for a lot of professionals. So I think it's certainly going to shape every industry slightly differently and the professionals that work within it, because we all have to reallocate resources now in different ways. So yeah, it's like you said earlier, Ranjit, there's always opportunity in these instances. So we need to be positive and try and find them as professionals. Thank you.
Ranjit ji, unmute yourself.
Now I'll move to Lakshmi. Lakshmi, your initial remarks or views on this particular theme question, and how we professionals are responding to this, that throw some light on this also.
Thank you, Ranjit, Ashish ji. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the listeners. A quick disclaimer, views will be my own personal views and will not represent the views of my firm. So let's get to the topic, right? We are clearly living in an unprecedented time. We all know that the two forces, the health force and the financial forces, they are intertwined together. But let's talk a little bit positive now, right? We are not living in 1918. It is 2020. Fortunately, we have a focused world leadership. We have a world-class technology. And we have a creative young talent. That is helping us manage the impacts of this COVID-19, which otherwise could have been catastrophic. So as a professional, what I would do is I will keep our morale high. I will keep our integrity high, because we need to protect the integrity of the market at this point more than ever before. We need to be very client-centric. We should be working hand-to-hand with our clients. And we should be very employee-focused, because that is our number one human capital. And without them, we are nothing. So with that, if we think about from economic standpoint, right, specifically from US, and we can connect that with the world, when I talk to my colleagues in the controllership or in the CFO world, I guess the number one issue they are facing with is the liquidity, of course. But what is creating that issue? The inventory levels are piling up. The receivables are also piling up, right? Which in turn, obviously, they are not able to collect the payments. They are not able to turn over their inventory quickly. Liquidity issues. It is eroding the market value of the companies and the businesses. And it in turn leads to layoffs and stores and, company closures and so forth. And then if we think from macroeconomic standpoint, there are few scenarios that are developing that I see in the marketplace, or economists, for example, saying. One is a low probability scenario that it's a low dip and we will quickly recover. So that's a low probability. The moderate probability is probably going to be, we get a moderate Q2 and Q3 dip, and then we get a prolonged recovery over next 4 to 6 quarters, which is more likely scenario. And then some economists are talking about the V-shaped curve, which could be true in some countries and in some communities, that it's a quick dip, very deep, and then it's a quick recovery. And interestingly, I'm hearing some of the W-shaped curves as well, that we may open too soon, we go up, and then we go down again. And then we be more careful and come out and open it up better than before. So with that dilemmas, right, all the clients are struggling with what would be my particular scenario. So the answer, I guess, lies with one single person. And that single person is consumer. Consumer has, I believe, the answer as to how they will behave in the near term and how will they spend money as we open up. So that's where I have looked at some of the surveys, and where the survey holders, they reached out to people throughout the world. And the interesting scenario that was developing was they asked the question that whether you are health hopeful or whether you are financially hopeful or whether you are anxious on both the fronts. And the good news is a lot of countries, consumers said they are health anxious, but they are financially hopeful. So that's a good news for the economy. There were some outliers. For example, South Korea, Netherlands, they thought they are both health hopeful and financially hopeful. That's a great news. And then there are some borderline scenarios like China, Spain, India, where they are more on the anxiety side on both sides. So if that is going to be the behavior, right, where the spending would be, if we think from economic standpoint, we ask them whether you will cut your expenses in the near future. The answer was yes, we will cut, but in certain areas. Interestingly, they said the travel will be their number one. They may not buy new vehicles. And they may cut expenditure on the apparel or in the home furnishing. Interestingly, they were neutral on alcohol and restaurants. And they also said that they will increase the spending probably on the grocery or internet or telephone or healthcare products. So that's kind of giving us some kind of trend from industry standpoint that where we will potentially land in a going forward scenario. So these trends could help potentially our clients, make strategic decisions on how to recover as we come out of this COVID-19. Back to Ranjit.
Thanks, Lakshmi, for your initial view, and we hope that it should not become W-shaped recovery. It should be as quick as possible, as fast as possible. So now let me move to Timshi. Your initial remarks, Timshi, on the, overall economic scenario and response of the professional to this.
Thank you, Rashid. And as like everybody else, good morning, good evening, and greetings from Melbourne. Clearly, the decision that every government had to make was to do a trade-off between health versus economy. And the lockdown was to preserve the health of the society and was at the expense of the economy. And virtually every government has gone that way. And it's interesting to see every country wants to come out of it at about the same time. So I read each country is starting to loosen, some a little more than others, and there's some differences within the country. But then the principal difference is the sort of health of the economy or the health of the people at the time when the lockdowns are being eased, and how that will play out in terms of the economy being able to recover. And some countries are in far better shape than other countries are. And I think that could create opportunities for those countries who can open their economies more quickly, get people back to work, start to pick up tourism and so forth. And at the same time, it may, for those countries which are not in as good a shape, their curve, as we hear, isn't flattening or lowering, they could find that W that Lakshmi had mentioned just a moment ago. And so some other countries may not have the opportunity. So I think what could start to emerge is, and I've seen it, there's 9 countries, I think, that are speaking to one another about opening up travel corridors. There's a bubble here. I live in Australia, and they'll probably open up travel between Australia and New Zealand first. But this will open up the tourist sector, and this will start to take some of the pressure off the debt that the countries are building up. So I don't think we're going to see an even outlook for countries. Which ones? I don't know yet, but I don't think it's going to be the same for everybody. But for the profession, I think this has demonstrated the profession is as important as ever. Because we all work in organizations that have to operate effectively. And under these circumstances, it's even more important they have to operate effectively. And the role that keeps the systems going to make sure that the decision process has its integrity and is intact and is as efficient and nimble falls to this profession. So all the people that I've spoken to around the world, while they're busy and busier than they have ever been before, they also know that they're absolutely critical to how the organization works. So I know some occupations have not fared well, but I think this particular occupation of governance professionals and company secretaries has done pretty well. So I'll hand it back to you, Chair.
Thank you so much, team, for your initial remarks. Now moving to the, Saad, Dubai. Saad, same question to you and your initial remarks on the overall economic scenario and, of course, what professionals should be looking forward as a roadmap to them.
Yes. Thank you. Greetings to all from Dubai. I agree with the sentiments described by my fellow panelist here. The world is never going to be the same again. That's for sure. And we need to adjust to live with the new norms. Lakshmi very interestingly mentioned about the V-shaped curve and the W-shaped curve. And the logic I would apply to either V-shaped or W-shaped curve is that, if the businesses and the individuals would compromise on their values in order to make short-term gains, then we are likely to see this W curve. Otherwise, if we behave maturely in a proper complying with the proper governance and the frameworks that we have, then it is more likely that we may have the steady curve as Ranjitji expected in his earlier remark. So the world has slowed down, but like Tim also mentioned that it has not slowed down for the professional services firm. So we as a firm here in UAE have also seen some growth. However, certain business activities have slowed down, while the others have picked up. It is very interesting times, and we cannot predict anything for certain at the moment. However, only time will tell. But to conclude my opening remarks, I would say the agility and the responsiveness is the way forward. And I would, expect the governments globally to take some action, and the action could be in the form of some kind of a scheme, which is employment income support scheme, because many people across the globe have lost their job, and they are not likely to regain the job in the near 12 to 18 months. Then it is going to be very, very difficult situation for the people across the globe. So my view would be that governments across the globe needs to think more creatively and come up with more innovative and creative solutions. And the professionals like us needs to play a pivotal role in contributing our thoughts to the government and work along with the government for the greater good of the community. One thing what I have seen during this difficult time is that communities have got together, and we have seen that certain pharma companies are working together to come up with the vaccines. The families and friends who have lost touch have reconnected again with the technologies. So there are some positives as well. The Mother Nature is reviving, and due to low carbon footprints, and we are seeing that the ozone layers are getting filled up. So there are some positives also. For a country like India, I think the environmental factors play a critical role, where India is more dependent on the agriculture. So imagine a situation due to low carbon footprint. If the environment was to improve, the benefit it can bring to the country like India is going to be tremendous. So we have to also look at the positives as well. Thank you. Over to you, Ranjitji.
Thank you, Saad, for your initial views. Thanks all the panelists for initial views. Now, I think whatever we are going to discuss second, some way forward has already been discussed, and my next question would be on that only. In the first round, let me quickly say that 5 major points has came out. That is, whether it will be a steady recovery or V-shape or W-shape recovery, whether people will be cutting off the expenses, organization or corporates will be cutting off the expenses or not, which sector will be cutting off the most of the expenses, which company or which country is going to say open up economy faster, and whether they will be taking the risk of opening the economy much faster and getting the benefit of say early movers. Uneven outlook on each country, Tim has mentioned. So that is also one of the point which we need to consider. And lastly, Saad has made a very interesting point that agility and responsiveness is one of the say most important way forward. So friends, of course, now we are going to discuss the way forward, and my next question to Tim is, what challenges companies, particularly not countries, companies or business organization will face post lockdown? Tim.
Well, I think companies are going to have to be quick to be able to adapt to changes in customers' behaviors and people's behaviors. And Lakshmi mentioned that very briefly. But people are not going to buy in the way that they did. In many cases, they will not be able to. And so, an easy low-hanging fruit to talk about is airlines and how they're going to have to change dramatically. But I think this has changed the way people look at their spending patterns and how much they spend. I think there'll be a shift. There'll continue to be a shift toward personal services. I don't think that's going to change. I don't think people are going to, for quite some time, feel confident going back into crowded shopping areas. So businesses are going to have to change how they adapt to the behavioral patterns of customers. At the same time, particularly all businesses are going to have to adapt or work very closely with their staff to maintain morale. Everyone I speak to, this has been very difficult for staff, either staff who have to go to work and have no choice and are nervous and they perceive they enter an environment which has great risk, or people who are working from home, often in environments with children and homeschooling and cramped environments, having lost contact and now eventually having to go back to the workplace. And in, big cities, dealing with transport and so forth. So organizations have huge people issues they're going to have to deal with, whilst at the same time keeping the business going, and at the same time managing their balance sheet. And others here have spoken about liquidity issues for businesses. Those that don't have a buffer, I think we will continue to see fail. It is inevitable. Those that do and those that can manage their cash flow will have a good chance of continuing, but managing your balance sheet is going to be absolutely critical. This isn't going to end anytime soon. So it's people, to me though, the biggest issue is people issues, both customers and staff employees.
Thanks, Tim. Of course, people, consumption, and of course, staff or employee related issues will always be there. And this will be one of the hindrance in the road to recovery. And how each of the countries will be responding, that has to be seen. Now, moving to the next question, and this question will go to Lakshmi again, and then it will be supplemented by Saad. What would be expectation of the industry, more particularly promoters and investors from the professionals, to help them recover the lost ground in shortest possible time post COVID-19 pandemic? So your views, Lakshmi, first, and then Saad, you can quickly supplement.
You can hear me well?
Yeah.
I know I was disconnected. Okay, so that's a great question, actually. I am trying to find the answer myself. So having said that, I would say, Ranjit, that it may not be a typical recovery, right? So it's unlikely to end suddenly, and there's no magic wand out there that we will come out of it suddenly and client will expect things from us as they come out. So the expectations, I believe, will evolve over a period of time. And the time is now than ever before to go shoulder to shoulder with our clients. So as I said, what can we do now, right? Rather than waiting until the recovery happens and clients ask us questions. At this point, the clients may be facing the risk of losing significant contracts with their customers, with their supply chain partners, and with their lenders. So how, as a professional, we can find alternates or renegotiate those contracts for the clients so as to avoid them from the risk of losing those contracts. So that's where I think we can start, right? And that's a good trust builder as well, so that clients trust you as they come out of this. And then once we start recovering from this, right, client will be thinking about how do they reestablish their workplace, meaning whether we should be working from home, whether we should go to office. What do we do with that? How do we reestablish our workforce, right? Whether we should be hiring more contractors, whether we should be having full-time, whether we should do onshore, offshore. So all the workforce related stuff they would be expecting from us. And third, how do they reestablish their work, actually? Automation, digitalization, process improvements, all that stuff, those are the expectations I believe will be from the industry or from the promoters, from the professionals like us. And I can tell you, and we can touch upon that, how do we do that, right? But just as a starting point, there may be almost like a command center, right? That it's like an air traffic control center, right? So I'm kind of envisioning like that. And there will be a command center, and company secretaries are well positioned to take control of that command center and be a pivotal point for our clients to handle all that, them as they recover. Back to you, Ranjit.
Thank you, Lakshmi. Now, I will move to Saad on the same question. Saad, your any supplementary point of view on this?
Yes, I think I agree with Lakshmi on the points he mentioned. On top of that, I would like to emphasize here that the patience is required by the investors and the promoters. That's number one. And the hand-holding needs to be done by the professionals like us in terms of mentoring the promoters and investors in guiding and grooming the way through this difficult time. Because the way I foresee the situation is that, as soon as the lockdown opens and the economic situation tries to improve a little bit, people will try and catch up on the losses what they have made, and as a result, we may see the over trading, and that will further create a grave situation of the liquidity within that company. So at the moment, I foresee that the outsourced CFO type of services may come in demand. Also, the sustainability of certain companies may be under question. So for that again, will bring back to the point that the professionals needs to come up with the sustainable solution. Of course, these solutions need to be out of the box because the situation is unique and it has never been experienced before. So all our past theories and experience will not count as much as if we come up with the new solutions and the new theories to be in place. We as a professional need to upgrade our digital skills as well to keep up with the pace of the changing times. And at the end, again, I would emphasize that the patience is required by everyone in this situation. Thank you.
Moving to Karen. Karen, can you suggest some ways that company secretaries or governance professional can help their organization to recover with say greater pace? And this question may be supplemented by Tim also. So first, Karen, your views on this?
Thank you, Ranjit. I think as CSIA, you're probably aware we have 14 member countries, which covers a large portion of the globe from both west to east. So there's a variety of titles that are actually in this professional role, be they company secretaries, corporate secretaries, and governance professionals of many types that we're dealing with now when we're looking at these roles. But I think, as Tim probably mentioned earlier, the boardroom is going to be a different place going forward. Companies are going to start looking at how they can do things differently, how they're running their business more efficiently than they have in the past. And the very important role for the governance professional there is to be the advisor to the board. We always say the board makes the strategic decisions, they take the direction, they look at product differentiation, but the company secretary or the governance professional is advising the board on how to do these things, what compliance needs to be handled, and basically any new legislation that's going to come out of COVID-19 for any of those activities. The company secretary or governance professional is going to have to guide them to make sure that things are done correctly. Creating new ways of doing things needs to be done with a good reputation of the business. So I think that's probably the most important role, is to make sure that any decisions the board makes, the company secretary advises them correctly to make sure that those implementations happen correctly. The company secretary is also the conduit between the board and a lot of its stakeholders. So the company secretary is often in constant communication with any type of stakeholder, be they, like we said before, funding organizations. Lakshmi's mentioned liquidity being a problem. Those funding institutions want to know how their things are going to be paid back, be they debts or reduction in investments. And it's important that the way forward is communicated very clearly to any stakeholders. Everybody wants clarity on the position of the business on its way forward, and it's an important role for the company secretary to make sure that that is a very open channel of communication. And then I think lastly, that role of the company secretary to keep the board together. They're very much the gel between the non-execs and the executive directors on the board. And us not having in-person meetings at this point in time, there can be a lot of miscommunication. So I think it's important for them to keep that gel between the directors, be they execs and non-execs, to make sure they're all on the same page.
Tim, thank you, Karen. Tim, before I move, I will supplement this question with one of the questions I have received from the viewers. That I am a member of ICSA. My question is, what the opportunities for ICSA member from India in global market? And if there is so, which country do you think has the pioneer of such opportunities?
Well, I'm going to pick Australia. Of course I am, but that's because I live here. What do you expect me to say? But I want to add one thing to what Karen said. I've been interviewing our members for an interview series over the last couple of weeks, and two of them who are absolutely classic company secretaries, have said to me, everyone else in the organization can have their moment of flapping around or whatever. But the company secretary must remain calm at all times. And they said, we just have to. And a bit what Karen said, you've got to keep the board together. You've got to be that bridge between senior management and the board, and you must always be level-headed. You must always be giving, wise advice. And two of the people I've interviewed have said, if there's anything that we have to be now, it's calm and measured and get on with the job and keeping things going well. So that's what I think is an important part for the role. Obviously, I'm not going to repeat what Karen said because I agree with it all. So thank you.
Now I'll move to our President Ashish Garg ji, and in fact, one question has came from the viewers also in this regard, that how are the professional bodies supporting or planning to support the professional members during the pandemic, as how we are working towards the various professional module, how they are updating them. So basic question is that what initiative ICSI or other institution across the globe has taken to support the professional to perform their duties or professional activities during the lockdown. It will be directed to Ashish Garg ji, and thereafter Karen, being President of Corporate Secretary International Association, and Tim also will answer this question. So all three, starting from AG, Ashish Garg ji.
I think our members and students are very well aware about the initiatives taken by your institute. But for the benefit of all, I would like to tell you, because yesterday also I was attending as a panelist one international webinar. And this point was discussed. And so many countries, people are not aware that how we can help the government professionals by taking some initiatives. And one of the major initiatives which ICSI has taken during this lockdown, that we have identified the areas, problems, issues under the various corporate laws and regulations which will affect the ease of doing. So we have prepared the representation, we have given those representations to the government. In India, especially the Ministry of Corporate Affairs and SEBI, which is regulating the companies and the corporates. So we have given those representations for relaxation of various norms of holding the board meetings, general meetings, and other procedural aspects. And fortunately, the Indian government has come out with so many relaxations, and which will help across the board for all the stakeholders, including corporate company secretaries and the corporates. As far as our internal guidelines and regulations are concerned, we have relaxed certain norms. One is relaxation of auditing standards. We have extended the timeline. Second, we have given the guidance of doing the audit, because in this pandemic situation, it is very difficult to go and do the audit manually, going to the client's place. So we have given the guidance that through online mode, how you can do the audit and how you can use the digital signatures. Apart from that, we have started so many capacity building programs through online courses, through crash courses, through knowledge initiatives of the members and the students on compliance of regulatory, security law, intellectual property rights and arbitration, IT tools, so what? So everything. Apart from this, we are continuing with the webinars like which we are holding today from the various topics for the professional interest, and including some holistic development of the members, students and all the stakeholders. And as I told you that the viewership has crossed from 50,000 to 1 lakh across the world. Other than this, we have also provided the guidelines for compulsory attendance of the programs and extended certain norms. And more importantly, I think for every institution, our future buddies are the most important stakeholder, our students, our future governance professionals, our future company secretaries. So we have provided the support to them through online classes, through various coaching institutions, through various coaching initiatives, through online mode, relaxation of their appearance in the exams, and all training modules in an online mode. So all the compulsory training, they can do it through online mode. So various digitalization initiatives ICSI has taken, and I would like to hear from Karen and Tim about their institutions. So where we are lacking, we can definitely take it forward and implement in ICSI also. Thank you.
Karen, your views, please.
Thank you, Ranjit. And I think kudos to ICSI, because I think you have a very large member base compared to a lot of the member countries around the world. So I think you should be actually teaching a lot of us, because clearly within a number of members you know what you're doing. But in principle, I think it's the same. I think what Ashish has said is to make sure that as an institute around the world we're covering both elements, which is obviously our existing members that are in professional practice, and then the students, like Ashish said, to make sure that those future governance professionals or company secretaries are continuing on their path, and we're not delaying their path because of this pandemic. We don't want to find company secretaries in the same situation where we slow down their online learning and they don't manage to find the exam at the end of the year, or suddenly they're 6 months behind in their career path. So most of our member countries have had two streams, like Ashish has mentioned. The one is to make sure that your professionals are up to speed with whatever is going on in their country. In South Africa, just to give you a simple example, the revenue services have obviously implemented a lot of relief in terms of taxes that need to be paid, taxes that can be carried for 3 to 4 months. So it's very important for all of our members to understand those measures, how those measures can affect the client's business and how it can allow them to function for 3 or 4 months without even more concerns from a revenue stream. So from a membership perspective, it's very much to make sure that professionals can carry on practice and offer services to their clients in the most efficient manner. From a student perspective, like Ashish said, it's to make sure that they're consistently learning in a holistic approach. So we've had webinars in all of our member countries slowly coming along over time, and this pandemic has just forced that momentum to happen at a much faster rate. I think if you were to count the number of webinars that happen on a global basis every day now, we'd all be amazed how many institutes, companies, any other organizations are holding webinars. I think we're probably one of about 200 today. But it's really picked up the speed of student and member learning to share a much wider knowledge base. Whereas before they might have been very specifically on governance, they might be learning now about more risk management, more auditing, because they don't have much to do and there's this huge availability of resources. Thanks, Ranjit.
Thank you, Karen. Now, can you supplement or complement Tim on this question itself?
Yes, happy to. And I don't want to repeat, because all of our institutes are doing a lot in regard to webinars and so forth. But I think one area where our profession has played a valuable role is working with regulators and the exchanges to look for relaxations, which you have mentioned here, which others have mentioned. And that's extremely important, because you've got a lot of organizations, well, AGMs for one thing. This is AGM season for a number of companies. And we are very quickly, there needed to be a relaxation of rules for many companies. So I'm aware that in a number of the divisions of our institute, there's a lot of work on assisting the exchanges issue guidance notes, issue exemption notices by the corporate regulators, and they're looking to industry, to the profession, to highlight and advise them. So there's been a lot of joint work between the two parties coming up with how do we deal with this extreme situation which is happening so fast, and removing the blockages to allow business to continue. To me, that's been an absolutely valuable contribution this profession has made. And then all the other things the others have mentioned, we don't want to hear it twice. So thank you. Back to you, Ranjit.
Thank you, Tim.
May I add a point here?
Yes, Saad. Yes, please, Saad. Yes.
Yeah. So our institute, ACCA, what they have done is we have about 500,000 plus students across the globe. and they were seriously concerned about this lockdown situation and them not able to appear for the exams. So our institute was very quick to respond to this situation, and we have come up with the online exam which they can appear from home, and this will be invalidated by the technology. So any kind of a movement or a voice or anything of that sort will invalidate that exam. That kind of a technology has been developed and deployed, and hopefully I think from next month onward we'll be having those online exams, particularly foreseeing that if this situation is going to persist, then we need to work our way around. The another thing what we have done, and we used to do also before, is to create a benevolent fund for the members who are out of job. So our institute does support them in terms of their membership fees and certain other activities as well. So these are the few experience I thought maybe would be useful to other institutions as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. From institutional support now, we should move to the, say, industry and professional services. So now, next question directed to Saad and Lakshmi. And I would like Lakshmi to give the first his views. That can you highlight, Lakshmi, the industry which need more and more professional services, or in other words, will it be industry specific or across the board all industries will be needing the support? So which industry you should see the greater opportunity, and how this opportunity will be different from what it was in the past? Lakshmi.
Yeah, thanks, Ranjit. Very complex question. So I think it almost like a matrix organization, right? There are industries on one side, and then there are market offerings on the other side, as to what kind of support as a professional we could provide. So I would position it almost like a professional support model, right? This is the time that we as a company secretary should be looking at some strong pillars of our support to our clients. So I know Tim has rightly mentioned working with the regulators, we should provide wise advice, and Ashish touched upon the education aspect. So that to me is number one pillar, the education pillar, that we should be educating ourselves and we should be educating our clients on changes in regulatory updates that are happening every day, changes in legislations. I know a lot of countries are coming out with new legislations to provide financial support to the industry and to the individuals. So we should help our clients interpret the provisions of those legislations and to get maximum benefit out of those legislations. And third, as an accountant, I believe that the auditors will be on top of us in few months or weeks. So we can proactively, as a company secretary, help our clients deal with those audit questions. That what could be the potential audit questions in the coming days and months, and we can help prepare our clients on dealing with those audit questions. So that's, to me, the education pillar. The second thing I would say is, as I touched upon before, the protection pillar, that now is the time more than ever before to protect our clients from risk of losing their business. And when will our contract renegotiation skills come into play? This is the time that we know how to negotiate contracts with customers. We know how to draft the language. We know how to develop a pricing strategy. We have the holistic picture of the business, and this is the time we can work with our clients. I would not say educate them how to do the business, but be a partner along with our clients on their show. And third, to me, is the collaboration pillar. As a professional, I should be collaborating with our clients, again, more than ever before. And collaboration on what? as they strategize when the economy will open up and go towards recovery, and they should be establishing new business models, new scenarios from recovery standpoint, so we should be collaborating with them. Now, having said that, if I talk about very specific opportunities for our professionals, I'm sure the professionals may be eager to hear the specifics. I touched upon the contract modifications and contract renegotiations and pricing strategies. So the number one question that I'm getting from the clients these days is, how do they deal with the impairment coming out of this situation, right? And that I want to connect with our valuation professionals, because company secretaries are valuation specialists as well. So when they ask me a question, Lakshmi, whether it's an impairment indicator, first of all, I'm like, what? I mean, it looks like an impairment indicator. So as a professional, we can help our clients see the reality, right? Sometimes the clients may say that, oh, my revenue is okay, my costs are fine, my supply chain is intact, some of the industries. But we need to advise them on the macro perspective as well. How about your stock price? How about the industry overall? You may be good, but may not be the industry. So indicator assessment is one. And then comes the valuation, right? The valuation of the business, because when you test the impairment, you need to fair value the assets and your business and goodwill and so on and so forth. So we need to work with the clients how to adjust their cash flows as we value their business. We can work with our clients on how to adjust the discount rates as we calculate the fair value of the business. We can work with our clients how to adjust the useful life of the assets, right? Because that may increase or decrease the depreciation going forward. So these are some of the opportunities alongside some of the documentation opportunities, because we are taught a lot of good drafting skills of accounting memos and work papers and so on and so forth. So a lot of clients need to make the new estimates, new judgments, and this is the time to utilize our skills to help clients document all those judgments and estimates. Because from financial reporting standpoint, that's going to be the key. Because it may or may not be the time to record the value in the books of account, but definitely the time to tell our investors that what are we thinking, what our assumptions are. So good time to help our clients documenting all that stuff. I guess a couple other questions that I get these days is the virtual closing process, because everyone is sitting at home and they want to close their books. They want to file their compliance sitting from home. So as I touched upon earlier, the command center, right? As a company secretary, you can almost help them roadmap all the activities, roadmap some of the critical path activities, or develop almost like a playbook for the closing process. You could be monitoring the execution. We could be providing an oversight as the client executes some of those activities. And risk mitigation strategy, right? Because we need to evaluate new controls. We need to help our clients mitigate the risk of closing books from home. So again, we know the business and we know the risk well, and we can help our clients on that. And then I guess a couple supplementary questions are around Chapter 11, what we call it in United States, the bankruptcy filings. God forbid, no companies should take that route, but there could potentially be the opportunities for the professionals to help our clients bankruptcy filings, going concern evaluation, determining their workforce strategy, finding the debt, finding alternate resources, as I said before. One last point before I close and hand over, Ranjit, is the strategic investment planning is also important. And believe it or not, some of the clients may actually have extra cash. they are doing good. The healthcare or grocery or consumer products, they are doing good, and they have extra cash. And we know that this pandemic is not going to last forever, right? We will come out of this. So this is the time to strategically invest that extra cash in the futuristic opportunities, and we as company secretaries help them find those opportunities. Back to you, Ranjit.
Saad, your supplementary view or complementary view on this?
Yes, I agree with Lakshmi on the estimates and assumption part, but I beg to differ on the healthcare piece which you mentioned. The healthcare on the outset, it may look that they are doing very good, but globally, all the governments have been putting a lot of pressure on the healthcare professionals not to make money out of this. And also, just to give you a small example here, that healthcare is dependent on a lot of technology and the instruments, which are very, very expensive equipments. Now, for these equipments, for example, the MRI scanning, if that is not being utilized to its capacity, then they may not be able to pay the lease which is due to the suppliers. So these are the situations the healthcare professionals are also in. So at the moment, it is a very, very difficult situation for all the industries. However, like Lakshmi mentioned, I agree certain industries are doing good, and they may even have more cash to expand and divest their investments. I would like to, I think someone earlier mentioned about the travel and tourism. I would just getting a little micro into travel and tourism, and I'll focus a little bit on the entertainment industry where we can start with. So in Dubai, what we have seen here is that the cinemas have gone kind of the drive-in cinemas. So because the cinemas have been closed by the government and they are not allowed to operate. So they have set up the systems in their parking area, and they have so that the ticketing business can go on, and the food sales also can go on. So people can, and they have come up with the technology so that the people can enjoy the movie experience and enjoy the foods and beverages which they used to enjoy, and at the same time entertain and divert their mind and attention from this COVID situation. So it is important that we pay attention to these kind of smaller micro details as well. Another industry-specific issue, I don't know how, as a professional, our role will be in this particular industry, is the construction and the real estate industry. We have heard, and we may have seen also already, that working from home is a reality, and many big companies like TCS and all that, they have already announced that they will start to work from home. So then that means that it is going to have implications on the commercial office space. This means that there is an opportunity for the businesses to redirect their attention and reconvert those commercial office space into residentials. And residentials also needs to be upgraded to make sure that they have the office space within their home as well, if they have to work from home, because it cannot continue like the way we are currently working from home. So we need a dedicated office space if we have to permanently work from home. I'll refer to the Lakshmi's point. Maybe in US it is very different. He mentioned that the furniture industry is the struggling, and people may cut the cost on that angle, but refurnishing the house to make it equipped for the office environment, that small area may flourish. So the furniture industry also needs to redirect their attention in a way that will allow them to sustain their business. E-commerce and technology will require a lot of investment because they have seen phenomenal growth. So again, from the M&A valuation due diligence perspective, we professionals are going to be busy. And the growth in the digital means that, for the fraud and forensic services and the cybercrime related services are also going to be significantly in demand. So all in all, I think the professional services are going to get busy. The professionals are going to get busy. However, we need to focus our attentions on the right area, and that there will be a lot of opportunities I foresee. Thank you, Ranjitji.
Saad, I will continue with you. Lakshmi has mentioned and he has given his view on the, say, a lot of insolvency cases which are going to come in future. And I totally agree with this particular point. Your comments on this also, maybe Saad and Tim also can supplement on this, that due to slowdown in economy, corporate is going to definitely face the liquidity crunch as Lakshmi has mentioned. And do you all believe that this will move more and more company to possible insolvency proceeding? Or what would be the role of the professional working in these companies to safeguard the companies and professional practitioners to safeguard those companies for the insolvency proceedings? And if insolvency comes at any stage, then what will be the way forward for those companies to say come out of the insolvency? Saad, your views, and then Tim, you please supplement on this.
Yeah, certainly this is a difficult times, and liquidity issue is going to drive many businesses out of what they are currently doing. And also as things stabilize, we will see that government will also try to recover a lot of money through taxes because they have increased their expenditure significantly, and they'll need to fill their gap in the deficit. So this is going to be a very difficult situation. So my answer is yes, the insolvency proceedings will increase. So for the professionals, there would be an opportunity that, let's say in any given business, they may not need to liquidate the whole business. To bring in the liquidity, they may carve out certain part of the business and try and sell that out to the companies who are cash rich and who have the ability to buy in such businesses, so that will bring them some kind of a liquidity. Structuring of the deal will also be an opportunity for the company secretaries and the professional. We need to explore new possible solutions, and out of box thinking has to be the way forward, in my opinion.
Tim.
It's inevitable that there's going to be insolvencies, absolutely inevitable, and they're happening. They will be happening in every country, and it's happening here. And in some ways, I know it's harsh, but it's part of a natural process that businesses go out of business all the time, and it will accelerate now. That's no question about that. But there are some businesses which probably are a reasonably sound business, but their balance sheet wasn't strong enough to hold them up. And I look at an example here. Virgin Airlines in this country has gone into administration. It has 19 bidders circling around it to take a portion of it or all of it. It was a reasonably good business. It had extended probably a bit further than it needed to, but it's a sound business. It just was in far too much debt. So some businesses, as Saeed has sort of alluded to, they're going to reconfigure. They'll be picked up by some opportunistic purchasers who have cash. I fear more for the small businesses, which impact on individuals who have retail shops and so forth. And all I have to do is drive down the high streets and see shops which they're not just closed, they're gone. and they're for lease, and they're starting to pop up in lots of places, and they're not coming back. They're not coming back anytime soon. So it's inevitable. And then what I then turn to is the drain it will have on the economy, the debt a government is going to incur for generations to come to pay back, and how are they going to cope with that? And I think Saad also sort of touched on it. This is the worst possible time to increase taxes. And I think the governments are between a rock and a hard place there. And they'll do everything they can to not, but by the same token, they've taken on mountains of debt. And I don't know how they're going to get out from under that. In fact, it's not an entirely good time. No.
Karen, valuations, as all the three panelists are agreeing that valuations are going to become very, attractive, and a lot of M&A activities are going to come. So do you agree to this particular point that for the professionals down the line, say 1 or 2 years or 3 years, there will be a lot of opportunity in the corporate restructuring or M&A or say acquisition related businesses? Karen.
Thanks, Ranjit. Yeah, for sure. I think, and especially in emerging economies. I mean, India is in one of them, South Africa certainly another. Brazil is a member of CSIA, so very much in the emerging third world countries, if you want to call it that, we're very likely to see a lot of M&A activity. That might be through the form of foreign direct investment. You know, some of them might get snapped up by some large blue chip companies. Sure, of course, it will always guarantee a bit more work for the professionals. And obviously being involved in that transition, as we've said before, is the most important. You know, making sure the resources of that transition of the M&A are accounted for, that the people are accounted for. So as Tim said, you know, there's never 100% happy resource base when there's an M&A, because there's always somebody that loses out. But for sure, there's always going to be that activity in the crisis that we're in now. I think for a lot of the smaller countries, like we've said, the emerging markets, we've touched on the fact that the communities have come together, and I think we're seeing that a lot in Southern Africa. You know, we're getting a lot of small companies that are merging and almost combining their resources to make one efficient company. And the one will, as Tim said, inevitably fall by the wayside, but it does mean some form of an 80% survival rate as opposed to 100% non-survival. And as professionals, for sure, we need to try and help those people as smoothly as possible continue to operate. So, thanks.
Thanks, Karen. A lot of questions are coming from the viewers on one particular point, and we all are governance professional, compliance professionals, and we know that what is the value of the compliance. So it is question on the principle of corporate governance and sustainability of the business. Do the panelists feel that principle of corporate governance will be able to survive in the turbulence of the COVID-19 in the corporate world? And the present challenges the world faces is getting revenue back, generating more and more cash flow, including cost cutting across the organizations. Hence, the focus is not compliance at this moment. How do you see these challenges globally, and will companies be likely to cut cost on compliances, including fees reduction, salaries and all? So this is coming, and in fact, one direct question to Mr. Ashish Garg, President ICSI, that how pandemic is going to change the ICSI approach on various topics, including standards, guidance released by the ICSI and also the government, and will it sustain the changes suggested, because COVID-19 for all the regions deserve to be continued. And if it is continuing, then how we will be able to make the balance between the corporate governance, compliances, which is very important, and also the relaxations. So first reaction of Ashish Gargji, and thereafter I will move to Karen and Tim.
I think corporate governance is the key. Without corporate governance, no company can sustain. And we have witnessed this in the past. We have seen the failure of corporate governance in so many countries, and so many companies, and we have seen that how those companies have completely fall down. So corporate governance is the key. But the most important part of the corporate governance is the transparency. I feel if your board is more transparent, more vigilant, then definitely they will take care about their employees, about their stakeholders, about their even consultants, because this question comes to me. So as a company secretary, as an employee, and as a company secretary, as a consultant, your board will definitely take care. And this is the opportunity for you to show your strength to the board, to the corporates, where you can guide them in a better way. As far as relaxation in corporate governance norms are concerned, or relaxation in the compliance mechanism is concerned, government has already given so many relaxations. And regularly, whenever the corporates are facing the difficulties, we as an institute, we as a professionals are always representing to the government to give more and more relaxations. So I think the basic structure of corporate governance will remain same. As far as compliance is concerned, this is the prime responsibility of the professionals, of a governance professional, and definitely our professionals will take care about that. As far as guiding the companies, we have to guide them, like we can show them a real path by holding the meetings through video conferencing, or holding the annual general meetings through video conferencing. So there are always means and ways to protect the basic governance structure in all the corporates. Unmute yourself, Ranjit ji. Then
Tim, your views on this?
I think corporate governance is absolutely safe. And the reason I say so is the focus of the institutional investors that look after trillions of dollars of people's money at this current time, with share markets and people's pensions under threat, are even more so focused on how the organizations that they've invested in are faring, even more so on the transparency that is so critical for corporate governance. So there is just no way you would convince me that it's going to be any less important than it is now. To me, it's going to be more important. Back to you.
Thank you so much. Any other panelists want to give any view on this? Anybody want to supplement? Lakshmi? No? Okay. So let's move forward, and now I will move on to the technology, because nowadays everybody is talking about the digital technology, usage of the technology. So one thing that here is to stay is the technology, and the usage of the technology under the such difficult times is going to be more and more. We are all aware that during the COVID-19 lockdown, some of the professionals and also the organization have changed their way of working and also mode of advisory, as Lakshmi has also suggested in his initial remarks. Do you think this will become the new normal for the professionals and the corporates? What changes professionals are required to do in the times to come, and what challenges are associated with it? So first I will move to Karen for this views on this, and thereafter maybe supplemented by Ashish Garg or any other panelist who wish to.
Thank you, Ranjit. Yeah, it's interesting. I think we've certainly seen some major improvements in technology over the last 6 weeks, if you want to call it that. And again, I say, especially in emerging countries, we often have data problems down this side of the world. And it's been a challenge, but companies have come to the fore to assist other entities in being able to still be able to communicate. So technology has definitely changed, and it's going to be ever evolving, as it has been from the time that people actually got a TV. I mean, if you look at how things have evolved for all these centuries, it's not going to stop now. And in fact, they say, it gets exponentially quicker every time it improves. So we're only getting more and more and more into improved technology as we go. But I think the reality is that we're not robots. Technologies are technologies, but people are people. And I was having a little bit of a chat with Tim about this before we started, is that, corporates don't exist because we have computers and we have technology. They exist because we're people. And people run businesses, and people create relationships that create businesses. If you look at CSIA, and I'm just going on about it because it's a very interesting way that we see how each other operate in different countries around the world. We might operate differently, but at the end of the day, it's still the people that make those institutions or companies. And if we're talking about professionals dealing with people's money, as a couple of the panelists have mentioned, you still want to have that human kind of perception of who you're dealing with and who you're doing business with. So I think it's going to form two realms, really. I think we're certainly going to go back to the having normal AGMs, having conferences and seminars that are people-driven, networking and doing business with people and not computers. But if you think on the flip side, a lot of companies these days are employing the younger generation who are not so much people-driven. They are just technology-driven. They spend their life on their cell phones, they spend their time on social media, and they are not so people-driven just because of the era in which they have grown up in. And I think maybe this time where they've had to deal with almost more face-to-face meetings, even though they've been virtually, than they may have been used to, it might change the way in which that element of the business operates. I remember back in the day when emails were the first thing that actually evolved as technology. People stopped picking up the telephone to have real conversations, and now they hide behind their emails. So possibly that generation that are very much technology driven, this kind of almost face-to-face interaction might improve relationships for that side of the business. So I think it's going to be a challenge for entities to decide how they find the happy balance. How much people contact do you have, and for which parts of the business, and for which part of the businesses can you improve by using this new technology and platforms that we've come up with? Back to you, Andy.
Yeah. Ashish,
I think post-lockdown, these economic activities would be taken up with much faster pace, and everyone would be expecting to cover the lost ground with shortest possible time. As Lakshmi has also mentioned and Saad has also mentioned about the V recovery or W recovery, it may be a U recovery also, which we all are not expecting. It should be V recovery as we wish. So it is possible only by way of digitalization, which can contribute another 1 trillion to the Indian economy if it will go in a right way. And another big opportunity is the e-commerce. Definitely, as Saad said, it requires a lot of investment. But if we want to improve our economy or improve with the fast pace, then these two will play a major role, digitalization and the e-commerce. And the role of professionals like a company secretary or governance professionals required to guide the corporates for the operations, for the expansions, for the mergers and acquisitions. And technology is the buzzword. We all are seeing that we have never thought that we all will do the webinars sitting at different countries and guide 1 lakh professionals across the world. So this is the technology. So like our board members or the AGMs, they are doing it through this way, and they have to learn. They don't have a choice, because now the board meeting cannot be held through a physical way till this COVID will be there. So technology definitely has to play a major role, and everyone has to learn the technology to cope up with these challenges.
So I got two takeout from this particular conversation on this particular question. One is that no technology can replace the human intelligence, and humans will still be required. And definitely that is the special skill every human being has got. So no need to worry. Karen, thank you so much for that particular thought. Second one is that investment, a lot of investment will be coming into the technology. It is not like that we are already using the technology. We have seen the potential in the investment in the technology during this particular lockdown, that what magic technology can do and how much investment is required in this particular area. So investment, say for example, e-learning, e-commerce. So e-commerce has already groomed, but of course e-learning is required to go to the next level. So that is the point. Moving forward now, on a say this question only to the say it's a second side, that when comes the technology, it comes with some challenges. And with digital technology comes the data theft issue. How important it is for the organization and also for the professionals to take necessary cover under the insurance, and how they can safeguard their data and organization from the privacy related issue or breach of data privacy. So I think views from the Saad, and thereafter anyone, if anyone want to supplement on this. Saad.
Yeah. So I'll continue with the previous question and answer this question as well. I'd like to quote a very, popular statement which the CFE Institute, they quote in many of the research papers, is that technology do not commit fraud, people do. So the point earlier Tim and other panel speakers were making about the corporate governance, the importance of corporate governance will continue to be in existence, because as long as the people are involved and combined with the technology, the need for the professionals, especially the corporate governance, is going to be there. So firstly, before I move on to address the question on the insurance angle, I would say that first, the control needs to be improved. And that's where we as a professional needs to play a role. While certain risk of the cyber related risk or the data theft and other technology related issues can be transferred, but this is a costly exercise. This is not going to be easy for the small and mid-sized players. For the bigger corporates, it may be easier for them to transfer part of the risk to the insurance. But for the small and mid-sized player, they have to have little bit of appetite to take little bit of risk, and also maybe if necessary transfer little bit of risk to the insurance. So this is my view in terms of the insurance. Of course, if they are able to afford the insurance, then it is going to be good for them. But the cost and benefits of getting the insurance needs to be evaluated. And my personal view is that the small and mid-sized businesses will not be able to afford, given that they need to add value to their offerings. Over to you, Ranjitji.
Can you supplement on this, Lakshmi?
Yeah, I was patiently hearing corporate governance and bankruptcy and acquisitions and technology. So on technology side, logistically agreed webinars and e-commerce and so on and so forth. The question for the professionals is, how can we become tech savvy to help the businesses? Are we taking enough courses, and are we getting enough experience in the technology world so that we can help the clients, for example, in their SAP implementation, right? What is our skill set? How are we polishing ourselves? How can we help our clients on artificial intelligence? How could we help our clients on robotic automation processes? So, do we have enough knowledge and skill set to help our clients? So that's the question we need to ask ourselves. On the acquisition, just a ground level picture, I think I'm pleasantly happy that in the United States we are seeing our clients continuing with their technology implementation programs, even though they are facing the liquidity issues and all that stuff. Corporate governance, I guess one point I would say is Ashish and Tim hit the nail on the head that absolutely there is no alternate to corporate governance. We just need to know how to manage the emotions of our clients. Yes, they will be emotional, right? The compliance could be the last thing they want to worry about. But this is the time when we can help them manage those emotions and bring them on the right path of corporate governance. As you rightly said, there is no alternate. I'm very surprised that my call calendar is full discussing the valuations and the acquisitions. Yesterday I heard some of my clients have gotten into the acquisitions. So these are surprising things. We don't know what's happening. we will know as things happen. We can just think about it. So those are my 2 words on some of these topics.
Thank you, Lakshmi. Any of the panelists want to supplement on this technology part? Or should I move forward? Yeah. So moving forward, I think a lot of question has come on one particular point. I was hesitant to ask this particular question. And in fact, it was in the, initial question which I have received from the viewers also, and I have also framed. But whether I should ask this question or not, I was very bit confused in regard to maybe possible trade war between the China, America, and other countries, because it is called that local to global or global to local now. So, what is your views on this? In fact, I will ask this question to Tim first. That what is going to happen? In fact, I will say that which part of the world is going to receive more and more investment, or in other words, which continent is going to become the new investment destination, considering the fact that people are saying that let's use the local, don't use the global. So these are the contradictory point, how balancing the world, entire world will be going to do when you are one side talking about the, say, use the local, and another side you are talking about that be global and receive the more and more investment from other countries. So I think Tim will give initial views, then maybe supplemented by Karen, and then Ashish, you should also give some input on the India point of view, that whether India is going to receive more and more investment in times to come or not due to this particular COVID-19 situation. Yeah, Tim.
Thank you, Ranjit. In a way, you asked a couple of different questions, and one of them in the beginning of your question was about, are we going to see a trade war? And somebody asked a question about China. And we all read the papers and we all see that there's an awful lot of noise out there. But I'm of the view that we're not going to have a trade war, that countries will act rationally, and that most of the noise we see out there is for domestic consumption. And it's going on with the country I live in at the moment and China, but I still think it's saber rattling and posturing, but neither country is going to do something which is going to be to their own detriment. And a massive trade war would be to a detriment. Now, I do think there will be some readjustment of supply chains, and there'll be some greater capacity in manufacturing in a number of countries where it had been entirely outsourced. But there are some things that are just not possible anymore on the scale at which the world operates. So there will, in my view, there will continue to be an enormous amount of trade and purchasing commodities, which has got to continue. This country exports iron ore, natural gas, and coal, and it's not going to stop doing that. Other countries are going to continue to buy it. This country is never going to have the economies of scale to do large-scale manufacturing ever, and it's going to have to purchase that in. But what regions or countries are going to attract more investment? I don't think the patterns are going to change all that much. Countries like India, which are growing dramatically quickly, are going to continue to do so. This is all presuming that the entire world doesn't fall off a cliff. If it falls off a cliff, then all bets are off. But I'm an optimist. I don't think it will. I think there'll continue to be huge investment in the African continent, which there is. I don't think China's going to stop its Belt and Road initiative anytime soon. I don't think that's going to change. So I'm pretty much an optimist. As I say, I think there'll be some readjustment, a little bit. Percentage-wise, I can't say, but I think the trends that we have seen in place are going to continue.
Thank you.
Back to you.
Thank you, Tim. Karen, you concur with the views given by the Tim or have some different view on this?
Thank you, Ranjit. Yeah, in principle, I agree with Tim. I think most companies as well as individuals are going to be very risk conservative at this point in time, where they're investing their money. And those choices are still going to go to the developed economies where there's some form of guarantee of a return to some extent. And like Tim said, who knows what extent that return might be from now on going forward. But I think people are going to stick to what is the conservative risk in terms of general investment. In terms of foreign direct investment, you might find countries that actually do have opportunities and manage to take those opportunities, that manage to attract new capital from other companies, from other countries, to start producing things on more mass scale. But unfortunately, as well as Tim said, the resources are not going to change. In South Africa, for example, we export a lot of raw material. We don't have the resources all of a sudden to convert those raw materials into the finished products that come out of bigger economies. So those hard facts are not going to change the trading activity, I don't think. It's just about who can take some opportunities and what risk changes over time. I think a lot of small businesses have taken the kind of China route for products that were cheaper. And maybe now they might be more responsible in their own minds and say, is it something they still want to do, or do they want to try and support local? So I agree with Tim. It's a small drop in the ocean, but I think the rest will pretty much stay the same.
See, as far as India's point of view, India will be definitely a benefiting country, as Tim has also said and everyone said, because whether it will be a trade war or not, but definitely US is going to shift so much of business from China to the other countries. And I have just received a breaking news that China has shifted almost 27 companies from China. US has shifted its 27 companies from China to Indonesia. So Indonesia is a immediately benefiting country. But definitely India will be benefited out of this. And India will be the next destination for investment from across the world. But yes, India has the strength over the pharmaceuticals, technology, where we'll have a global presence always. So local to global and global to local will be a continuous going on from shifting from one side to another. But as a overall, as far as India's scenario is concerned, definitely India will get a lot of investments from all the countries.
And just to supplement on what Ashish just said, right? I guess India has a real opportunity out there. As you said, US has shifted some companies, some business to Indonesia. Could India afford to give a level playing field to the US so that India could attract that investment? I think that's the question if our government and regulators ask themselves. I think the solution could be there. Having said that, immediately I'm seeing as a result of COVID-19, people are trying to go local shopping rather than taking few miles, trip to a larger shop. So that could be an impact. That could be good for the small businesses. But whether those small businesses are selling Chinese products or local products, that is a thing to be seen.
You want to supplement a bit on this? Because all the panelists has already spoken on this particular point. So I think your views are also important. Saad.
No, I agree with Lakshmi's view, where he very strategically mentioned that for the government, if they have to take advantage of the situation, then it has to look at the level play. It has to look at creating a level playing fields where the other countries like US can see that they are also benefiting from that relationship. So that's my view. Thank you.
Thank you. So Now, in the beginning, a lot of things has been stated that we have got very good lessons from the say COVID-19. So I'll move to Tim and ask that what are the say positive lessons we have learned from the COVID-19, because there are a lot of negativity. But what positives this particular say pandemic has given to all of us? Tim.
Well, I still think it's not a very nice pandemic. There's nothing really positive about this, but there are some things we can learn from it. We have learned to, I think, be a little bit more tolerant of other people. I have noticed it in my day-to-day life. We're all stuck in a lockdown. We're all having to put up with a situation which makes us nervous, and the overwhelming number of people, I don't see them very much because it's, you can't go out, but when you do, people are much more polite. I've seen a lot of businesses operate more tolerantly, a lot of, I guess, forgiving in terms of repayments and so forth. I think that has been something positive out of it. The interviews I mentioned earlier that I've done, a number of people said to me, we had these plans in place that we would move to more flexible, more nimble, more working from home. And we always knew we would do it, and it was always way off in the future. But we've realized we could do it within 2 weeks. And that pleased a lot of companies. They were impressed at how nimble they could be and how quickly they could adapt when they had to. I thought that was a positive outcome. One of the companies that I spoke to, which is in Hong Kong, and Hong Kong had SARS and so forth, and they said, well, we were ready for this because we dealt with a pandemic in Hong Kong before. So when the time came to jump, we could jump very quickly and very effectively. What that gave us was more ability to pay attention to the well-being of our staff. So I said we moved about 2,000 people within a couple of days, but we had the capacity to say to them, how are you? And put in place initiatives very quickly to look after the well-being. So, I mean, there's positives in the way we've reacted, I can see. But, I think we could have done without this. There's nothing positive in the big picture. But we've learned a lot, and I think that's the best I can say we've taken from it. Back to you, Raji.
Thank you, Tim. Now, one question has came from the viewers on any of the panelists can take.
Ranjit, I think I want to add this
positive
side on this,
Ashish.
because
Ashish.
we are always habitual to find the positive something out of that. So three things majorly which I want to tell. One is environment. No one has thought about the environment before this lockdown, because it will bring sustainability development in the near future. And now I have seen that people are talking about a 7 days lockdown in a year across the world to save the environment. So one thing which I am finding it. Another is the economies in the operations. Because of this reduction in cost and increased productivity, and as rightly pointed out by Tim, that people are habitual to work from home. So definitely it will reduce the cost to the large extent. And third major thing which I found is delogging of traffics. Because of, again, the work from home, people have learned the time management and the work-life balance. So these three things which I found it positive out of that, and definitely I'll keep environment as the topmost positivity.
Excellent response, Ashish. I must say that yes, these three things has become the new normal, and it is going to continue in future, work-life balance. And of course, working from home, one of the biggest issue is that the traffic issue across the world. And this is going to definitely help a lot in declogging the traffic. Now moving forward, one question has came from the viewers that due to current situation, it is expected that dispute will arise. So how can we take up this situation in resolving the problem of our client and employer, or maybe as an opportunity to gain more clients? For example, the force majeure clause in the contracts will take the driver's seat in the most of the contracts. So how to deal with it? I think, Lakshmi, you have touched upon the contract and contract related issues in the beginning. So I would direct this question to you first, and then any of the panelists can supplement into it. Lakshmi.
Yeah, I don't know, Ranjit, how to answer, but not a law professional specifically. I would defer to Ashish, but I think, we are specialists in writing and modifying and renegotiating the contracts, whether those are contracts with customers or vendors or supply chain or the borrowers. So we could help our clients redraft or interpret the contracts in a better way, so that we could help them, find the best value out of it. Having said that, we need to keep the social and society angle in mind as well. That what is good for the greater good, not just for one person.
So Naib, I will take this question to maybe Tim also. Tim, what is your view on this? And in fact, another question I have received just now. How do you look at the opportunity for the professional for international dispute redressal system under COVID-19? So Tim, and then any of the panelists, Saad or Karen, if you can supplement, or even Ashish, if you can supplement. So this is the question open to all of you. Yeah, Tim.
Well, I don't feel particularly qualified to talk about the international dispute resolution, but I guess in terms of the impact of COVID-19 on the professional and on this profession, I go back to my earlier answers that this profession is about implementing good corporate governance in your organization. And corporate governance, the necessity for it, is not going to go away. And in fact, it's just the opposite. So for this profession, and I think business professionals, lawyers and accountants, risk managers and so forth, there's not going to be a diminishing of an appetite for this, for what these professionals bring to organizations. This is making the world more complex. Yes, we might be working from home, and we might have a little bit more time because we're not going back and forth. But as we have spoken about, there will be a huge amount of M&A activity going on. There'll be a lot of reorganizing of businesses and supply chains and movements of goods and services. It's going to happen very quickly. This makes things complex, and this makes the demand for business professionals far more than it ever was. So I think that many of us sitting around this room, this virtual room, have a future in terms of the workforce. That's my view. Back to you.
Okay. So one of you want to supplement further on this? Saad or Karen?
Oh, I think, I'll refer to the point which Tim made earlier, that, the tolerance level has increased amongst everyone. And this is a good thing. So I personally foresee that the disputes will reduce, hopefully, as a result. Thank you.
Karen?
Ranjit, I think it's important. We talk about large corporations around the world, and we have governance professionals guiding those members and board directors. But for developing countries like yourselves, I spoke about this earlier, India, South Africa, many other emerging economies, there's not necessarily the legal and contractual astuteness, if you would like to call it that, as there may be if you took them as a comparative to a large global organization. And I think the reason I say that is you will probably find that a lot of entities have never even understood this force majeure clause in their insurance or even looked at their leases with their landlord to understand in what situation they would be in legally in a scenario like this. And I think that's important for governance professionals that deal with your small to medium enterprises. They really have to make sure they've dotted all the I's, excuse me, and crossed all the T's, that they actually understand the contractual obligations they get into and how they react in situations that, I mean, hopefully we won't have another situation of this magnitude. But it's important for them to all understand contractually what they get themselves into and what clauses mean when they do business with other stakeholders, with landlords and insurance brokers, for example. Back to you, Ranjit.
Okay. Thank you. I think 2-3 more questions we will take up and then we will wrap up the whole thing. Ashish, you want to supplement on this or should I move to next question? Ashish?
Yeah, you can move forward. Dispute is a part and parcel of the business. So I think nothing new. And whether it's a pre-COVID or during the COVID or the post-COVID, dispute will go on whenever there will be a business. So always there is a huge opportunity for the professionals wherever there is a dispute.
Okay. So I think one question which I think as a panelist, Lakshmi wanted to say answer, and he has shown his the choice also he has wanted to take up. How do you keep your team motivated? Lakshmi, it is very important. All of us knows that the confidence level of the team is very, very low at this point of time, and everybody is going to catch up the whole thing. So how we should be able to motivate our team in the difficult time? So this answer we expect from your side.
So Ranjit, this question you should ask my team, right? So I think from my team perspective or team management skills, number one is the flexibility. How much flexibility we could offer to our teams, no matter what the time is, whether it's 5 o'clock in the morning or 11 o'clock in the night for me, what is best for the team? So that's something I need to consider in mind. 2, I would say execute with the team. This is not the time that we should be supervising our team. This is the time that we should be working with the team. So I would go to the team, hey, I have started this. Let's work on this. And I have allocated this particular section for me to work on. So it's almost like a teaming opportunity. And 3, and I will connect that a little bit to the positivity angle that Tim and Ashish both mentioned, that this COVID-19 has taught us to push ourselves, go out of our comfort zones a little bit, right? And in fact, there are some occupational shifts going on, right? That if one occupation is not working, they are going into a second occupation. So on that part, I think from teaming perspective, some nice happy hours where we could all enjoy together. And I can tell you, I have organized a happy hour last month where we virtually played music for each other. And there were songs people were singing, there were instruments we were playing, and yes, there were a couple of drinks as well. I would be dishonest if I would say there were no drinks. So the point is how to keep the mood of the team alive the way we used to do that before. We were physically meeting before, but we are virtually meeting now. So that's the difference. So with these 3 pillars, I would say I would want to keep my team alive, and we all as professionals keep this as number 1 priority. Because if there is no team, there is no work.
Moving to the last question, and in fact, I would ask this question from first Ashish Gargi, and thereafter I will move into Karen. Can all the CS institute in the world come together and build a course for the global risk management for the company secretaries or governance professional. Very interesting question which has came that, of course, risk management may be global also, and global risk management is one of the things which may be different from one country, different from another country, and factors may be different. So, can it be possible for ICSI or CSIA to take the lead and design a course? Food for thought has been given by some of the members. So, initial views from the Ashish, and then maybe supplemented or by the Karen. Yes, Ashish.
I think, Ranjit ji, if you remember, just 2 days back, I have called you, being a chairman of international committee and being a vice president of CSIA. And we have discussed that how we can design initially the 3 days, 4 days, 5 days capacity building program about the international opportunities, where our members can work abroad, where we can discuss about the foreign laws, contracts, and all those things which they should know to go abroad. So that we have discussed, and on this platform, even I can assure that we are working out, and we are going to soon launch this capacity building program initially for the members who wish to go abroad. But yes, definitely we can work out, and initially the things have already worked out where our members can pass the exams of CSIA and UK and different countries and pass these 2-3 papers, and they can work abroad. But it's a good opportunity for all of us, where I think in India we used to say Vasudev Kutumbakam, where all can work together. So this is a good opportunity, and definitely we as a ICSI will definitely work out with the different parts of the country, including CSIA, where we can come out a common course. After doing the company secretary, they can pursue that particular course through our PMQ committee and through some capacity building program, or through jointly with CSIA, and definitely we can work out for the benefit of our members.
So, Karen, I think it's a food for thought for CSIA, that how to build the capacity of the governance professional across the globe, and what we can do to say offer these kind of courses, or maybe say e-learning program for the member countries. So, what is your views on this?
Yeah, thanks, Ranjit. Ashish has already mentioned that we're actually about to release our One Thought leadership paper from the CSIA, which includes the comparative analysis of company secretaries or corporate secretaries, as you will call them, in various parts of the world, and how that role is different in the 14 member countries that we cover. So that thought leadership paper will come out, and it's a very interesting document to read, just to see, like Ashish mentioned, if somebody wants to move from one country to another and how it would be different. And I think it's the same for risk. You mentioned at the beginning of your question that risk will be different for every country. It will be different for every entity within every country. That's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to give a one shoe fits all when we do stuff for CSIA. That's the beauty of having 14 member countries, and we want to continue to grow that base to be able to get comparative analysis. So being able to understand the various risks around the globe allows us to put together a comprehensive kind of tool that people would be able to start with and use and adapt to their environment. It's not about giving you something that is already done. It's about understanding how you could do it differently in different parts of the world. So for sure, I think it would be exciting, because surely with the different variety of countries we have, we'd come up with some interesting things some of us would never think of. So you're the vice president. You and I can get this going. How's that?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Karen. I have 2 minutes time left. So any of the panelists can want to give any concluding remarks, or maybe Ashish want to speak at last before we conclude. So any one of you quick wrap up, maybe. Ashish.
I think it was a very fabulous webinar, and I must compliment Ranjit Pandey for taking this initiative along with Karen to hold this webinar, where members across the world has joined. And I think it's a good opportunity for our members, especially in India, So we can have more and more programs on this international arena where at least one program in a month can be organized through this webinar mode, because we all are aware that due to social distancing and due to travel norms, I don't know, for another 2-3 months, travel will not be possible across the world. Otherwise, we used to have a cross institutional programs where our members are attending, and normally we used to have an international program in the month of May, June, where our members are visiting the other countries and learning the things from the globe. So through this way, we can have more and more interaction, and I must compliment all of you, Saad, Lakshmi, Tim, Karen, and Ranjit ji for holding this webinar. Thank you so much.
So to conclude, I will just wrap up and take you through the whole discussion, maybe very briefly, 1 or 2 minutes, and thereafter we'll conclude. We have discussed the V-shaped recovery, U-shaped recovery, or maybe W-shaped recovery, and definitely recovery is going to happen. And we are professionals are going to support the corporate. Of course, maybe many corporates are going to cut the expenses. We as a professional need to know that where expenses are going to be cut and where the expenses more and more investment are going to have. So professionals are need to analyze, and after analysis you can divert your attention in those areas where investments are coming and where expenses are going to be reduced. So of course there is no magic wand. Hand-holding of the professionals are required for recovery. Digital skill, we have discussed that digital skills professionals are required to acquire, and if they will acquire more and more digital skill, if they will become more capable, then definitely they can work with the technology and they can help the corporate. We have discussed the opportunity part also, wherein we have discussed about the renegotiation, the contract and modification in the said contract, then collaborations and the joint ventures, impairments and valuation of the businesses, insolvency and bankruptcy related issues, then merger and amalgamation, restructuring, strategic action plan, which is required to be implemented, more acquisitions, more takeovers. So these are the, future of the things. And in fact, one of the, viewer has asked the question, is it the right time to start the practice? I will say that always a right time to start the practice. And if you will starting is important, and then there is no looking back. You can become a good professional. Technology part, we have discussed that human intelligence cannot replace, technology cannot replace the human intelligence, and investment and more investment in technology and e-learning has to be made. Technological education is also important. Trade war, answer from all the panelists is that there is going to be no trade war at all. And in fact, Tim has made a very interesting point that countries are going to act very rationally. And I believe that yes, countries are not going to go for the short-term gain. They will be going for the long-term goals, and they will be acting rationally. Lakshmi, thank you very much for the team part. And one of the point I have picked up is flexibility. Yes, flexible hours, flexible working, and flexibility in the working has to be given to the team so that they should be able to perform better in the difficult circumstances. And working with the team, going down with the team, that yes, we want to work together and bring the results together. And of course, at the end, we have discussed the joint learning program. Of course, Ashish ji and Karen has already confirmed that yes, we can come out with some e-learning module or e-learning program. And if, of course, thought leadership paper is wonderful idea from the CSIA, wherein comparative analysis of all the compliances and the basic requisite for the governance professional has been done by the CSIA. This will be circulated to everyone. So we discussed the global economic status and global opportunities for the professional and what will be the way forward. It was wonderful webinar, and in fact, it is indeed a great discussion. Thank you so much all the panelists, Tim, Karen, Ashish, Saad and Lakshmi for your time. And of course, we are into sitting in the different time zone. And different time zone, Lakshmi has started 5 o'clock in the morning and Tim must be sitting at the 9:30 at night. So thank you very much for joining, and looking forward for the more and more opportunity to work together. Thank you. Thank you all the viewers for joining in here from across the world, and all the professional colleagues, members of ICSI, members of the CSI member countries, CSIA members, and all the professional across the world who has joined. And those who are not able to watch, we will share the link on the social media, maybe Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And you can forward to your professional, and in fact, a special request to Karen that all the member countries can be getting benefited from this live webcast, and it can be forwarded to them. So thank you so much to all of you. Thank you all the members of ICSI and all the professionals across the globe. Thank you for joining. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranjit.
Thank you very much, Ranjit, for wonderfully hosting this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellent. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.